there, Jim here. So today we're going to have a look at the unboxing and a review of this smart digital multimeter made by Tesmen. It's model TSM-192, and maybe we can sleuth out over the course of the review who the OEM is for this meter, because I don't believe that Tesmen is an OEM. I think they're a brand and they source their devices from a variety of manufacturers. I should mention at the beginning that I received this video courtesy of the Amazon Vine program in order to perform a review, and this video review is an adjunct to that. Now, if you find this video to be helpful, please give it a thumbs up, or better yet, subscribe to my channel. Questions and comments are always welcome, and I appreciate the feedback because it helps me know where I can focus my efforts. Now let's get on with the unboxing and review of the multimeter. So it's a nice box, and you can see inside here we've got a nice little pouch, and there's in the bottom here a user manual. That's all there is in the box, so we don't need that anymore. So the user manual, TSM-192, true RMS multimeter, 2000 counts, and the manual is in several languages. So we've got English and what looks like German and French, and I think that's probably Italian, Spanish, and I'm not sure if that's Chinese or Japanese. So several, what appears to be a kind of a hefty manual, but several different languages in here. So the English part of the manual, basically 12 pages. And some of that is stuff that's not all that interesting. Okay, I'm sure you don't want to see too much of the manual. Let's look at what's in the pouch. So you open that up. And oh, that is smaller than I thought it would be. Okay, so that's a small little unit. The probes, they store on the back here, but they are permanently attached probes. Okay, they don't come out, so those probes are permanently attached. And it does come with a pair of AAA Duracell batteries. So that's pretty nice. So, but it's a good idea that we have to put the batteries in ourselves. So let's look at getting the batteries in here. And if you've seen some of my other videos, you know that one of the things that I really like is seeing a reinforcing ring on the battery compartment. And what do we have here? A nice reinforcing ring on the battery compartment. So I think any device that does not have one of those reinforcing rings is kind of telling you that it's a toy and not intended for serious use. So let's get these batteries in. It's always nice when they come with batteries, although, oh, turned on already. Although anybody with a multimeter probably has a good stock of batteries, but like I said, it's always nice. It comes with batteries. Okay, and so batteries are in, screwdrivers away, and we can see auto. Let's pull off the protective film, and there you have the meter. Hopefully not too much glare on the display. All right, and a set of probes. So There they are. They're good length. There's a little bit of a shroud on the probes to help with safety if you're working in a high voltage situation. But most of the time, for the things that I'm dealing with, I just take these off. I'm mostly dealing with 5 volts, 12 volts and stuff of that like. So there we have it. And of course we can turn it off, turn it on, and it looks good. So now we need to go through some of the measurements. Focus in on this. You'll see that this will do voltage, both AC and DC voltage. It'll do resistance in ohms and continuity. This doesn't have things like hertz or amps or any of those things. So this is a smart multimeter that is really focused on the set of functions that a smart multimeter can focus on, which means some of the other things that would require typically a disconnection of the probes can't be disconnected here. Those sorts of things aren't available. But let's see how it works for the things that it does support. A couple of things just at the beginning. Oh, the probe's touched there. That wasn't me. A couple of things to take note of here initially. This button here is used to sort of force one of the detection functions. So if we press this for a long period of time, okay, it turns on the backlight, so we can see that. That's the short press. And then it goes through non-contact voltage, live wire detection, phase detection, we'll look at that in detail, and then back to auto. So non-contact, live, and phase. The other items work on automatic. And then there's a data hold function. I don't tend to use that very much. And there's a flashlight feature. So, you know, if you're doing something and the power went out, maybe that flashlight would be bright enough. I don't know that it's all that. There are a lot of lights here in the studio, but I don't think it's all that bright, but it is decent. I mean, you know, what you can do with an LED these days is pretty cool. So I'm just going to turn that off. Don't want to chew through the battery too quickly. Now, I'm going to use, for test purposes, I've got a little set of doodads on a breadboard here, and I tend to do, for comparison, I tend to use this Fluke 117 as, let's say, the gold standard, if you will, for the measurements. Let me just sort of prop that up a little more, just so that you don't get too much glare off of the lights. And I've got some alternate probes here on the Fluke, just to make it a little easier. These have alligator clips. Okay, so let's have a look at the functions. Now, since it seems to have a preference, let's look at non-contact voltage first. So I've got non-contact voltage. I've got an electrical device cord. Let's see. That is plugged in. Okay. So that works when you bring it to the wire, but at the end of the wire, oh, okay. Okay, so the non-contact voltage is usually, the sensor is usually up here at the front where it says NCV. I think the sensor might be, it's a little tricky to find where the sensor is. You can see it's not always picking it up. And one of the things is when I do that with the with the Fluke just calls it volt alert. So if we turn this on the Fluke, volt alert, the Fluke is really sensitive, as I've kind of found in a lot of other videos. So the Fluke, yeah, it's picking up voltage all over the place. So you could argue that maybe it's too sensitive. But maybe a little too sensitive is better as compared to this unit, where you've really kind of got to get right on top of that wire to get it going. Okay, so you make your own decision as to how important that is. Okay, so that's non-contact voltage. Next one is live wire detection. Oh, see, it's detecting something there now. Let's go with the live detection. So this is used, you know, when you've got a bunch of wires, you're not sure which one is the live wire. So we've got a bunch of contact points here inside the socket. So let's stick our, it's almost always the red probe. Let's stick the red probe in and see what we get. We'll start with something that's clearly not the live wire, which is the ground point. So yeah, not saying that's live. Is this live? That's the live wire. And that one is the neutral wire. Okay? So that works pretty well, and it's pretty quick, and it tells you right away. So live wire detection, totally acceptable. So that's the non-contact settings and the live wire settings. Now let's look at some of the things like voltage. So I'm going to look at, we'll look at AC volts and DC volts. So first we've got our wire here. Let's go back into auto. So we've got our test point here. We'll be really careful. We'll stick this probe in here, and it's all the way up into the insulation. We'll stick this probe in here. Okay, now it's turned red to tell us that it's a high voltage, and it's showing 121.8 volts, 121.9, 121.8, 120.9. Okay, and that was pretty quick, right? Let's do that again. Some of these auto multimeters are not very fast. That's pretty quick. Like I think that's totally acceptable, right? It's detecting that voltage, and it's a dangerous voltage very quickly. So I'm happy with that. And given the vagaries, I'm not going to bother with the Fluke on that one. The voltage tends to vary anyways. So now let's look at, that's AC voltage. Okay, now let's look at DC voltage. So we've got this breadboard here, and this breadboard, if we turn it on, there it's on. It's currently configured to produce 5 volts, 5 volt DC signal, so I can work that with my hands. Let's see what happens here. Oops, let's not block the display. Red to red. Let's make sure that we're going to sense the voltage, not through the resistance. Okay, so red. Black. Okay, 4.98. 4.98, pretty quick. 4.98, so that's pretty quick. That's good for DC voltage. Let's try, we'll do the Fluke here, because the one thing on these tends to be the responsiveness. We'll clip in one end there. 4.973, 4.97. So, you know, unless you're worried about the tenths of a volt here, I would say that this is fairly accurate. I'm happy with the accuracy there, and the responsiveness seems to be pretty responsive. So that's another good sign. Now, The other test that I like to do with these that kind of drives people crazy is continuity. And I'm going to have to switch the probes on the Fluke to do that. So here you can see. Okay. So it really, you can see that a quick tap is not, something is happening, but it's not triggering the beep on the continuity. You have to really have it in contact for a while. Now let's get the sort of typical probes in for the Fluke here. Okay, turn that to continuity. And this is the kind of performance that, that I like to see. You can see very quick, no doubt about it. Okay, so super responsive on the continuity. So continuity works, but like a lot of these sort of auto meters, it's kind of slow. So let's say it's par for the course for an auto meter or a smart meter as they're called, but generally most of the time, especially given sometimes you might not get good contact with your probes, the responsiveness like what we're seeing with the Fluke is more like what we'd generally like to see all the time. And last but not least, let's look at resistance. And of course, the question always is how long does it take in order to trigger? So I'm just going to turn this circuit off. Don't want any stray voltage there. Anyways, the 2 points. Here's a resistor. So this is, if you read the color codes, this is a 150 ohm resistor with a 5% tolerance. Let's see what we get here. Okay. So wanders around a little bit. And of course, given the way it does the counts and the ranges, you can see, but it's generally reading 155, 156, 157, and of course it's showing K ohms, but it's 0.157 K ohms, which is 157 ohms. So now let's look at what happens when we do a similar kind of test with the Fluke. Set it into ohms, get the probes here, one side, the other side, very fast. And this resistor seems like it's pretty dead on, and the Fluke is also not wandering around very much. You can see it's pretty much settled in. It's 149.8, 149.9, 150. Okay, so it does take a second or two, but once again, to compare with the Tesmen smart meter, takes a while, and then the reading kind of wanders a little bit. So, given the margin of error with a 5% resistor, 5% margin of error, 5% there would be anything to 155. So that might be okay, but I think it's a little bit funky. I probably would not rely on this too much for resistance. It seems to just have, it seems like it could be better. Let's put it that way. It could be better. Yeah, 147. You can see it's kind of all over the map. 147, 149, begins to drift up like that. So now the other thing you could say is that with resistance, those small errors, you know, a couple of ohms here or there, don't make a difference because they're well within the tolerance. But once again, you be the judge as to whether or not that's significant or not. So let's look at the phase detection. Phase detection is something that I can't really demonstrate here because I don't have a multi-phase circuit. But the idea here is that you can see it's in phase mode, and you can use then the red probe, which is used for the non-contact voltage detection. You can use the red probe to determine which of the three phase lines you're on. And so you're supposed to kind of go through, and I mean, if we pretended for a second that this was had three different phases, we can go in here and say, since this one, you can see, and it locks in, says, okay, that's phase A, locks in another one, that's phase B. Okay, and it's saying right now that there's a left rotation of the phase. That's what it means, phase left. And so that's an interesting feature, but one that I'm kind of shocked to find on sort of an auto meter like this. If you were in a scenario where you cared about the phase, you'd probably want a much higher end, more robust multimeter than the sort of quick, handy pocket multimeter that we see here. So all in all, let's summarize. Fairly limited set of features. Like we said here, it's got voltage, AC and DC, it's got resistance, it's got continuity. All the features work. So everything works the way you'd expect, which is a good sign. But not the kinds of thing, I mean, you know, maybe if you had this in your bag for, you know, emergencies when you're not generally expecting to need a multimeter, this would be handy. It's nice because, you know, the probes are built in, and so they're not going to get lost. You can stick the probes on the back, right? You can turn that off. And so, you know, overall, right, if you want to stick this in your, you know, everyday bag, just in case you happen to need a meter, it'll do the trick, right? Especially if what you're worried about sensing is AC voltage. We saw that it did a really good job with AC and DC voltage, but and the live wire detection worked fine. Non-contact voltage could have been a little better, to be honest with you, well, and the continuity could have been better as well. And so there you have it. The Tesmen TSM-192 smart multimeter. I hope you found this video to be somewhat useful, and thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel.